welcome to session 2 of this Chapelstreet Zoom podcast ministry called Marriage RX, Keeping Your Marriage Healthy During a Pandemic. I'm Brian Coffey, pastor of leadership and development at Chapelstreet Church and campus pastor at our South Street campus. And this is my wife, Lorene. She's director of Chapelstreet Women. We want to welcome back our panel of Chapelstreet couples, Ryan and Brenda Saul, and Brandon and Carrie Peterson, and Eric and Amy Elfman. By the way, if you attend Kesslinger campus, you might recognize Eric. He helps lead worship and has for many years on the keyboards, and we appreciate him very much. So thank you guys for sharing a bit of your lives with us as we explored in our last session the impact that the season of COVID-19 has had on our families, and especially on our marriages. In our first session, we tried to identify some of the what I would call colliding stressors that we've all experienced during this time. Quarantining, the virus itself, working from home, kids trying to do online school, moms trying to help kids. The changes and losses have come in so much of our society shutting down. We talked about the impact of those collective stresses and the impact they've had on our families, and in particular, our marriages.
So in this session, we want to focus on some of the strategies that you may have discovered, either intentionally or accidentally, that have helped you not only survive this time, but maybe even thrive in it. And we know that that has been the case for some people, but it's been both. It's been hard, and it's for some, and it's been a blessing for others. So let's start with this question. As the season of COVID is dragged on and on and on, what kind of things, from new boundaries to new expectations to new routines, have you found helpful in reducing the stress on your family or marriage? What have you found helpful in reducing the stress on your family or marriage? And I think I'll start with Amy and Eric. I'm going to correct something Brian said, because you'll find Eric at Mill Creek campus. If
I
you're
said Kesslinger?
You said Kesslinger.
Oh, sorry.
So
Mill
I'll just correct that for those who know Eric from Mill Creek campus. But let's start with the Elfmans on what has been helpful for you during this time.
I think one of the things for us that's been helpful, we have always meant to do this, and we really kind of did it more this time, having a family meeting on Sundays to look at the week and who's responsible for what and what kids doing. And even though most people are doing less during this time, we just had never really gotten it together to make that happen. Amy's increased her hours this year working, so that's decreased the time that she has to help them get here or there. And having one in middle school and one in elementary school, the times have been different, and of course with the AB schedule and yada, yada, yada. So trying to figure out, okay, who needs to do what, who needs to drive where, and having that listed out ahead of time instead of it being a surprise on a random Wednesday. Oh, right, I'm supposed to be here. When? In 7 minutes.
Yeah. You know, that's so interesting you say that, because that's something that we ended up landing on as being super helpful for us too. Sunday nights, we would look over the calendar for the whole week, and we found that to be really helpful way back years ago. So it's good to hear that that's worked for you as well. What about Brenda and Ryan? What about you? What's been something that's been helpful for you in reducing stress on your family or marriage during this season?
Kind of like you said, unintentionally, we've discovered we have these roles set up that we just kind of fell into, but we just naturally went with, I call Ryan a stalker, but he loves to be on Power School. What assignment's done? What's the grade? Where I could live an entire school year and never pull it up. I wouldn't, it's fine. And so, but he's on top of their schoolwork and he's checking in with them, and I don't want to do that. Or don't ask me any questions about the Chromebooks or anything. So that all goes to him. So there's been times I've said to him, I didn't even see the kids today while they've been e-learning. He's like, oh, they've called me 12 times. But but that he has the answers, I don't. But then I'm much more into their emotional health and making sure they're happy and making sure they're socializing how they can. And that's not on his radar as much. So I think just respecting what each other does well, and please take that part of it. And I'm happy to do this part of it. And it just helps everything flow a little bit better.
So you've unintentionally taken on different roles, and that's worked really well. You played to your strengths and that's worked well during this season, kind of fallen into that. Good.
Yeah, I love that line, respect what each other does well.
Yeah,
That sounds like a very easy thing to say and do, but it's a little easier to say than it is to do, and that's a really wise statement.
Yeah.
I don't cook. I'm never touching the kitchen. She touches the kitchen, and she's not going to play with the Wi-Fi. So.
And that's what makes for a happy marriage. There you go. What about Petersons? What about you?
Well, I would say, I mean, there is the role, divide and conquer type of situation. I know it sounds simplistic, but I try to get my kids outside every day. Mm-hmm. And this started in March. And even today, we were at Leroy Oaks in St. Charles, and I took them for a walk, and it was so cold. But I just thought to myself, I've got to get my kids outside. I mean, we have explored so many forest preserves in the area, and it's an outlet for us. It's an outlet. I know my kids are getting some type of physical exertion. It always helps that they're going to sleep better at night when they do so. But we try to get outside every day. And some of this time has been in a situation where we're just going on a hike and nobody else is out there. It's not like we're playing sports, because that can be team oriented. It's just us. And I find it has some really positive effects.
I love that. Because to me, you might not have been thinking about creating a coping strategy for your family. You're just kind of reacting instinctively as a dad. But that's like a win-win-win, really, when you think about it, because you may be tired after a day of teaching, and you could easily just go try to flip on the TV, but taking them outside is good for them. It's good for you. It's good for your relationship with them. And it gives your wife a few moments of quiet, which is a great gift that you give to her. So that's what we're talking about, stumbling onto things that actually are become a gift to each other at a time that's really weird when you can't do all the normal things.
Mm-hmm.
What about, I'll just open this up and anybody can jump in. Actually, some of you have already referred to this in our first session, but if you want to follow up in any way, how have you managed to find time for each other as a couple? And I know that is different at different stages of your family life. Brandon and Carrie, you mentioned that you have tried to take time with some babysitters or family coming in, taking time for the two of you, recognizing the importance of that. Anything you want to add to that? Are you doing that regularly, or what's?
Probably at least once every other week we try to do it, and we always know when we're at that point where we just need it. And so thankfully
hang on, don't mean to interrupt you. We'll go back. How do you know when you're at that point
that you need it?
I think that sorry, it's got a little one here. I think that when we're just feeling like maybe we're not connecting and we're arguing more, maybe starting to pick out those little things that bug us, and that seems to be more on the forefront than anything else.
You can feel the internal stress level going up. You can feel the little tensions, and pause. Hey, we need to get some space.
Yeah, a little less of that happy-go-lucky marriage conversation too, like good night. No, just a little bit more like, we just have to get that back. And when we can connect together, it's amazing how just 2 hours can bring that back. So definitely recommend that. Even if it's after your kids go to bed, instead of one going to Netflix here, one going there, just having time to watch a movie together. Even if you're not talking, you're still together without the distractions. We just feel like that together time when you're awake is a good thing to continue. Mm-hmm. However it may look, and it's not always easy, but
we've had to get creative, because going on dates regularly is a way that we connect. Brenda, for our 20th, when we couldn't go on our trip, she planned the entire day that we went back to where we met, where we would eat when we were in high school. We went back to our high school. We went where we got married, and so we couldn't go in really anywhere, but we just drove around to all of our spots where we used to hang out. And that was just a couple hours of us being alone, away from the kids. And you got to find different ways to get creative and ways to connect. And so she's the creative side and really good at that. I'm not so much, but being along for the ride, I'm lucky in that respect that we make a priority to find time to connect together outside of the house and away from the kids.
Yeah, again, when it might be easy just to, one more day, watch one more, night of TV and go to bed. You even driving around in the car, but remembering key moments and memories of your life that creates moments of connection. But it takes intentionality to do that.
Yeah.
Well, and one thing I would add to that is just in general, like he said, I'm good at that. And I think if you're the person in your relationship who wants to plan the dates, who's looking for all that, sometimes you can build a little like, why is it always me? Why am I the one? But at some point I figured out like, if this is a strength I have, then I'll take that. And he's thankful for it, and he expresses he's thankful for it. So just a little side note, like sometimes, again, those things that you do well, just enjoy that you do it well. And, you can get resentful about some of that stuff, but I don't know. You just have to embrace it, I guess.
That's a good point. I think it's a good point, because I think we can feel that way sometimes. I think maybe just feeling like my turn, your turn. And so I think, again, to speak to your strengths and understand and communicate about that and recognize that can be a gift that you give each other. So anything you want to add to that, Eric and Amy?
Well, neither of us are good at being the decider of the date. So our, we haven't been as good about this lately because the sun goes down at 4:00, but we were for a while doing like a happy hour walk every night. And sometimes that was like a mile, 20 minutes. Sometimes it's 2 or 3, whatever we could get away with before the children started texting us. But when you have the opportunity to sit in your room and watch Netflix or whatever, it's the easiest thing to do. When you're out walking, you can either talk or not talk. There's not much else to do. So we had some really good conversations and talked through a lot of those things. We were feeling a little bit better about bringing up, hey, you know what, you said this thing, or, oh man, this was terrible today. Why did this go this way? And be able to, talk and walk through it together.
Yeah. Great. What about, just switching gears a little bit, how have you learned, or at least tried to share some of the responsibilities at home with both of you home? Now, Ryan, are you home or are you working at your office? Are you working from home or a little bit of both?
Yeah, a little bit of both. Back to the office now, but there was a good 4-month stretch where it was at home.
Okay. So how did you navigate as couples household responsibilities and cooking and cleaning and kids? What did that look like? I'll let anybody jump in on this.
Now, and let me jump in there too and complicate it a bit. But I commented on what Brenda said about allowing each other to do what they do well. But sometimes we have to step up and do the things we are not very good at just to help. So how have you broken down? How have you found that and navigated that? The zillion things you have to do around the house that used to be done one way, now they're kind of done a different way. How have you jumped in and done that?
Brenda's a great referee. So when I'm home and I'm on Zoom calls, it doesn't matter. I know little kids can be loud and distracting, but bigger kids are louder and more distracting. So we have a family text string that it's Zoom time, and then Brenda has to play referee and go make sure that the troops are quiet enough to be able to conduct business. So that's one thing that I'm really appreciative for her. I think little things for me, I try to recognize Brenda's stuck inside with these kids all the time, with nothing to do. So I try to, free her up to go do something on her own. She makes every meal for our family. So after the meal's done, instead of her having to clean it up, I'll try to make sure that that's all done for her, and that I take the responsibility of cleaning up and help teaching the kids to do that as well. So that's just little things. Is there anything?
Ryan, have you have because you've been at home a little bit more, have you been able to do that kind of thing more than maybe you would have when you were?
Yeah, because there's a lot more time. I mean, that's the thing. Now that there's more time, you have these newfound responsibilities and things that you actually enjoy. I mean, it's pretty satisfying to get everything cleaned and put away, and I can do it my way, and it works.
I've learned when he's bored, he cleans out drawers, and I'm like, you go ahead with that.
And I've learned that you're not supposed to redo the dishwasher. If she's loaded the dishwasher, she doesn't like it to be redone so that more fit in. So you learn the little things.
No, Brenda, do you watch over him when he puts them in? Like
No.
She can
all
hear.
the knives have to be facing up or facing the same way, or?
No, I'm not like that. I
Okay.
came from, I call it a kind of critical home upbringing. So if what he thinks is helping, I take as criticism sometimes because but he's like, I'm just helping. I try to say the kitchen is like my office. I don't come into your office and check your emails. Come on.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, I would say for us, I mean, there's not like any type of organized system, but I have noticed how much work this house is, more so since this whole thing hit. And I'm not exaggerating. I mean, the amount of like the dishwasher and the laundry, I mean, the amount of laundry is intense.
And I love the fact that he gave me a tip about laundry because I said, it's nonstop. I mean, with 5 people, it's a lot. And I'm kind of OCD about the sheets being done on a weekly basis and everything like that. And he's like, Carrie, if the kids take a bath and they put on a clean pair of pajamas in the morning, why do you have to wash them? Why can't they wear them a few times? So I've appreciated the fact that he's trying to help by, maybe lessening the work a little bit. And I've been able to let go a little bit because sometimes you just can't keep up with it all. So I appreciate that he wants to not only offer suggestions, and sometimes I don't like them, but I always welcome them. And then, but the fact that he also just pitches in now. And I didn't really have to go through, we've had conversations in our marriage where it's like, you have no idea what I do and all these things. But I feel like when somebody can see it rather than being told and talked at about it, it is so much more eye-opening. Yeah. And then when somebody jumps in kind of on their own without having to be asked, I mean, that is just like, that's love right there. I mean, that's just when you're just like, that's what I fell in love with.
Especially an acts of service person.
Yes, absolutely.
So I do have to ask you a personal question though. He made some nice little suggestions to try to take pressure off you, but does he know how the machines work? Know how to?
Well, I would say since COVID started, I do.
The first few like loads of laundry, maybe they were wrinkled when they came out and he folded them, but I wasn't going to get picky if he was going to help. But now he's kind of got it down and nothing's too wrinkled.
Yeah, well,
Good job.
So you've learned some new life skills then. That's good.
In a way, well, I obviously, when I was single, I did all this. And then it was like, once I got married, to be honest, it was almost like, hey, she seems to enjoy it, But,
I make everything.
I don't know.
I make everything look fun. That's just who I am.
So being around, I don't know, so I started to reemerge in my skill set.
Yeah.
What I think he was trying to say is he knew that you like to do it a certain way.
Yes.
Which is probably the reality for some of us, right?
Yeah,
like
she's good, right.
He was
better at folding.
Lorene's on your side.
Yeah, right.
One of my great discoveries was if you could throw everything in if you just put the water on cold.
Right.
I just stuff it all in there, put it on cold, and she doesn't know the difference. When she gets back, it's all folded up.
No pink socks.
The clothes don't yell out, I was washed in cold water.
Right.
They don't tell on me. So how about Eric and Amy, how about you guys? Any new skills, any sharing of chores and responsibilities you did not do before?
I think in some ways, so teaching right now, at least for us, at least I feel like you're often like, I'm going to grab 10 minutes now, do some grading, or, just randomly here and there, instead of like, here's my school day where I work and here's where I'm not working. So in the similar fashion, I think some of the chores around the house, okay, I see there's laundry. I guess let's just throw some laundry in now because there's no laundry day anymore. It's just every day's laundry day. And then some of the things that, because I've been able to be home a little bit more, I'm a little more back in school now, but let's say we have an appointment with a plumber. Well, most of the time, if Amy's home, she's going to be handling that because that's the time when they can usually come. They don't want to come after 5 p.m. when I'm home. But now I can say, no, okay, I can be here then and take care of some of those things, which I typically would not be able to do. And I think just like, I think in the first session, Brandon and Carrie talked about noticing like when the stress is building up, seeing that in each other. Okay, I see that Amy can no longer talk to this cell phone representative on the phone, or she is going to break the phone. So maybe I'm going to take over this phone call for a little bit, and we're going to talk through this. Or just those moments happen, and you can grab something out of their hand, and in the moment, as long as they're okay with it, it's cool.
You're like, oh man, if
And
you
I
ever
think-
had a conversation with Comcast on the phone.
Right,
Oh.
exactly. Learning to say, do you want a solution to this problem you're telling me? Or do you just want me to listen to the problem?
Very good, Eric. Very good.
Question.
Because the number of times he's tried to help me, and I'm like, that's not, no, I just,
Yeah.
So hard. That's so hard.
I know. So, but on that topic, like he is good at making solutions. So when I started getting really overwhelmed at the beginning, Eric said, why don't we have the girls doing more chores? Why don't we include this as like a team effort? And I don't like asking for help from the kids or Eric, but Eric was able to say, like, let's involve them in this conversation, and let's like, hey, here are things you can earn money doing, and then you have some, extra freedom and things you can do. And he really owned that. And so I think that was really helpful, because as much as I was saying, I'm feeling overwhelmed, I don't know what to do, and I just want you to hear that, when you get to a point where you can hear some feedback and a solution, if someone can help you implement it, that can be a real game changer.
Yeah. Good. One last question. Do we have time?
Yep.
Okay. So, and I'll open this up again for whoever wants to jump in. How have you been able to either maintain routines or create new routines in the midst of all the change and chaos? I can't help but think there's new routines that have come with COVID. I mean, we're all doing things different, but maybe now you feel like it's kind of a new routine that you've established. How have you been able to either maintain or create new routines in the midst of all the change or chaos? Anybody want to speak to that?
I'll start. One way, as much as parents sometimes don't love cell phones and everything that comes with them, having a shared family calendar and just saying, this is when this Wednesday night, that's family game night, or whatever. It's on the calendar. Sorry, it's not me. I didn't decide. It's just there. Even if you don't end up doing it every time, it's helpful. But, especially our youngest daughter, Gwen, when we are both working and she's on her remote days, having timers set up and things for her, because she is very intentional. If she misses something, it really upsets her. So, like her clarinet lesson in the middle of the day, which neither of us are there to help her figure out how to get on Zoom, how to connect with her teacher. If she has something dinging on her phone saying, hey, it's time, that those sort of things, as much as we don't want to be slaves to the phone, they are super helpful.
Yeah.
We always had activities. So
Right.
This was a real, almost rich time to slow down. So Brenda and I were often in 2 different locations. Kids were in 3 different locations. So this season really brought us together to just slow down. Brenda took this whole December Christmas season to make it a December to remember. And so every day the kids opened up an envelope and there was some different activity or something cool that we would do as a family every single day. So that was something nice that came out of it. And Charlie, our oldest, who's 17, who had 2 hip surgeries, that was a real challenge in COVID, but then it was also a big blessing because he could use this downtime of not being in school all the time, not being in sports, not training. He could use that time to heal and get better. So while that was challenging, that was also a big blessing during that time.
So you guys actually replaced some of your, and we're very familiar with that life, the frantic 6 games a weekend or 12 games in a week and running around field to court and all that, with some different kinds of routines, very different, where you're all together doing family things all at the same place at the same time at home. And you did that intentionally.
And I think that the first maybe 2-3 months of this big drop off that we did nothing, that was very hard for all of us. You're texting your sport friends saying, if we could only go to a baseball game, if we could, and now it's enough time has gone by. This has become our new normal. And we've said, like, I don't think I know how to be busy again like that. And nor I'm not sure if I want to, I don't know. So it's just been a really good reset for our culture, of this busy culture that I think we desperately needed. And I needed it because it was hard and I was grumpy in the beginning. And now, I used to say I'm not made for quarantine, and now I'm like, I think I am.
Yeah, that's kind of amazing how you look back to how it jolted us so much when we got had to adjust to it, and we were trying to wrap our minds around what was happening, and then we all get into this kind of new way of doing things, and almost have to think about what is the new way. We're in it now. And but thank you, Eric and Amy too, for kind of talking about having to, I'm trying to just wrap my mind around how you're working and trying to have your kids go to school on their own. And when you talked about setting the timer on the phone, and but I have to also say, your family game night on Wednesday night, we used to do that too. We used to have our family game night Wednesday night. So that was fun to hear about, and was a blast from the past for us as well. How about Brandon and Carrie, any routines that you developed or have created in this time?
I don't know if I would say a new routine. I mean, it's so different because there's so much more downtime. I mean, we have something in our mornings where the kids have to do something called their trifecta. Tri means three. There's three responsibilities, three chores they have to do to get themselves ready for the day. Other than that, I don't know.
Did that predate COVID, or did you come up with that since COVID?
You know, that predated COVID, but in the same token, I mean, with COVID here, it's like if you don't get them to do it, then they're sitting around in their PJs way too long, and it can be kind of like annoying, you know.
That's significant though. That's it's not just creating a new routine. Sometimes it's working to maintain the old routines in the new setting, which keeps so you're get up, get dressed. You're not going to be watching your pajamas. You kept the routine. You kept that.
Yes, because I don't want the kids to sit around in their PJs all day long, because then it's just it kind of like brings this sort of like a slothful feeling to the day.
Right.
So there's certain expectations that we have. I wouldn't say, I don't know if there was anything mind-blowing.
I would call this necessarily a routine, but you could do this as a family, as a couple, or even just your own self-reflection. And sometimes we do this with our kids at night when we pray with them. It's so easy to focus on the negative things and the things that we're losing out on right now, and all the things we're missing and vacations that are canceled and things like that. But just trying, and again, you can do this on your own self-reflection as a couple or with your kids, just pointing out the things that happened that maybe wouldn't have, conversations, or the animals maybe we saw out on one of those walks that we never would have had that conversation or that moment. So I don't know if it's necessarily a routine, but I just think it's so healthy to, like I said, as an individual, as a couple, as a family, to focus on something positive, or just some of the things that came out of the day where maybe there was a disappointment because a game was canceled, or school was canceled or something like that, but just what came about because of it. And maybe there was nothing that day, but going forward, if you do it weekly, there's obviously going to be something that you can find.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well,
That's good.
I want to thank you guys again for taking the time to jump in this call with us, for sharing some of your lives with us, and some really, really good stuff there that we're going to build on in the next couple of sessions. But let me wrap up with just a couple of thoughts. I think one of the great stressors in our lives probably is just change, especially change that we didn't choose, change that we didn't sign up for, change that Charlie went through when he has surgeries he didn't ask for, change that all of us have been through. And we've all been forced to deal with that kind of change over the past year. And one of the best things I think that we can do in those times of chaos and change, and you've all talked about it, is to maintain or establish routines, life routines. And we've all heard the phrase "the new normal" so much that we're probably pretty sick of it. I think Brenda referred to that a minute ago. But there's both a little bit of truth and a little bit of wisdom in that phrase, "new normal." The new normal might mean just working to hold on to some routines that have been important to your family, like sharing breakfast time together. We can overlook that, but that's important. Or having dinner time, protecting dinner time might mean creating some new routines, like your walks, your what'd you call them, happy hour walks. Might be taking an evening walk just to decompress when you have a chance to do that. Might mean adjusting bedtimes. Might mean sharing certain routine duties like making breakfast or bath time or laundry or whatever it might be. It might be tag teaming some of the kids' routines. One of you takes lunchtime while one gets to walk. One of you takes care of bedtime while the other does errands. There are ways to help each other out by maintaining routines and establishing new ones, because routines matter in life. They don't make, it's not turning life into one big routine, but the predictable rhythms of life matter, and paying attention to that's important. So I would encourage couples, especially if this has been a really hard season for you, to take a little time to just talk together about the routines that you maybe once enjoyed pre-COVID and that's sort of fallen by the wayside. Or maybe routines you might be able to protect if you just made a little extra effort to do so. Brainstorm, maybe like a Sunday night family meeting or a Wednesday night game night, like these couples have talked about. Brainstorm new routines that you could build into your days that might provide a sense of predictability for you or for your family. Another stressor is simply cabin fever. I think Carrie was talking about this. Too many people together in one space for too long. Some poet said a long time ago that absence makes the heart grow fonder, and that may be true to some degree, but the flip side can also be true, and that is that too much time together can make you a little crazy and make you a little snippy and make you a little impatient. So it can help to create some boundaries regarding space. I think all of you have referred to this a little bit. Most people need together time. Most couples need together time and away time, or time separated from each other, personal time. So if you're able in your home, consider creating sort of zones in your home, a zone for workspace if you can, a zone for alone time, a zone for together time. You can do that by physical space, you can do it just by times of day. You may find by protecting just a little bit of time and space for yourself, your times then together can be much more enjoyable. It's also crucial, and you've all talked about this, to carve out both time and energy for each other, to be a couple. With so many responsibilities, it's quite common for the last thing to pay attention to be the relationship of the marriage. It's very, very common. And we often forget in all the other chaos to prioritize each other. So take some time. I encourage couples to talk a little bit about how you might be more intentional about protecting time and space that you need to stay connected as a couple. Could be just a couple of minutes a day before the kids get up and going. If you're early risers, it might be some time in the evening after they go to bed if you're night owls. But marriage has to be more than just air traffic control. And that's what it can feel like when all you're doing is working online, schooling online, doing your best to keep up everyone healthy, and doing all the chores. Every marriage needs more than that. It needs connection, communication, and intimacy. Even in the middle of a pandemic, we need to make at least some room for ourselves as a couple. So again, couples watching this, if this has been a hard time, take some time to talk about it. Don't talk about COVID, don't talk about politics, don't talk about social media, don't even talk about the kids. Talk about what you need as a couple. Do you need a date night? Might have to be creative, might have to call grandma or grandpa, might have to get a babysitter, but it can be done. Maybe you need to take a walk together after dinner to decompress. Maybe you need to turn off the TV and all the social media and put on some of your favorite music. Maybe you need to put on some dance music and dance, but do something to connect. Maybe you need a little romance. If you do, you can call Carrie and Brandon. I know how they do. No, maybe you need a little romance. You might need to be creative, but that's important. Don't abandon the things that brought you together. The point is, your marriage matters. Marriage matters. It's actually the most important factor, I believe, in helping mitigate the stress and chaos your kids might be feeling, is to make sure your marriage is not a source of that stress. But even with all this effort, even when the stress gets great enough, high enough, sometimes the wheels fall off, and sometimes conflict happens. We get frustrated, we get tired, we get short-tempered, and the result is conflict, maybe even painful conflict. So we're just setting this up for the next session when we come back to visit with all of you again. We're going to take on this issue of conflict. We're going to look at both healthy and unhealthy ways to deal with the inevitable experience of conflict in marriage. So I want to thank our couples again, and thank all of you who are watching for joining us for Marriage RX, and we hope to see you next time. Thanks again.